Speak. Hello. 1, 2, 3. No. Thank you. Is that what it was? They were coming out of the monitors and not out of the speakers? Yeah. Okay. It had a good reverb going on there too. No. All right, Luke chapter 2, if you would. Let's open our Bibles to Luke chapter 2. Monica, you did a good job with the kids. And you had some helpers, right? Who were your helpers? Casey and Leica. And even Alan plugged in the lights. Which Alan? Okay. Yeah, right. You did, yeah, Leica's Alan. All right. Yeah, you guys did a good job with the kids. I always appreciate hearing from the kids. And I know it takes work. And so thank you guys for that. We appreciate it. All right, Luke chapter, and as a matter of fact, we're going to be speaking on the shepherds today. And so it was perfect that the kids did their little presentation this morning. And there was a bunch of shepherds in there. And so that's what we're going to do Sunday mornings. I've been looking at different characters in the Christmas story. Today we'll be looking at the appearing of the angels to the shepherds. And so that's what we'll be looking at this morning in Luke chapter 2. And we'll start in verse number 8. Luke chapter 2, starting in verse number 8. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. Lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And I can understand why they would be afraid. Is that us humming? No, oh, okay, it's over there. All right, just want to make sure. I can understand why the shepherds would be afraid. I mean, let's think about it. It's dark. I mentioned this often when I speak about the shepherds. It was dark. There's no ambient lighting from town. There's no, Bethlehem's not afire with street lights and all that kind of stuff going on. And there's no ambient lighting. And so, for the angel of the Lord to appear and then the glory of the Lord, I can understand why they would be sore afraid. Now, I love the angel of the Lord and the glory of the Lord. In the scriptures, especially in the Old Testament, who was the angel of the Lord that would appear? So it would be Jesus Christ. In the Old Testament, when the three angels came to Abraham, and the one stayed with Abraham and the other two went into Sodom and Gomorrah. The one that stayed there was Jesus Christ. And that conversation always makes me a little uncomfortable between Abraham and God. Well, peradventure there's 40. Far be it from me to speak to the Lord, but 30. And then he's like bartering with God. And so that whole conversation always makes me a little uncomfortable as I read that. But that's Abraham speaking to a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus Christ. And then we have, well, even further back than that, the voice of the Lord walking in the midst of the garden. There's not just a mouth walking around in the garden. I believe it was Jesus Christ walking around. And then, so we have Abraham, and then later on we have Joshua. And you guys remember when Joshua goes over the Jordan, and there's that general. He's referred to as the general that's underneath the tree. He was the captain of the host of the army of God. That is a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus Christ. And a lot of times in the scriptures, when it says the angel of the Lord, that will be a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus Christ. If it's somebody else, it'll say an angel of the Lord was sent. Another thing, depends on the reaction of the one that appears. You guys remember the burning bush? The conversation with the burning bush and Moses. Jesus Christ is the bush, tells Moses to take the sandals off of his feet, or the shoes off of his feet, because the ground that he stood on was holy ground. All right, now, fast forward again to that general I was talking about, the captain of the host of the Lord. He says the exact same words to Joshua: remove the shoes off your feet, because the ground that thou standest on is holy ground. That's how we know that's not just an angel. If it's just an angel that appears, the angel will not receive worship. You stand up, we're the same. But if the angel receives worship, then we know that is Jesus Christ. Now, here the angel of the Lord appears to announce the birth of. So if we say that the angel of the Lord is Jesus Christ, then Jesus Christ himself is announcing the birth of Jesus Christ himself. Now, can that happen? Yes. Jesus Christ is God. God is omnipresent, which means he can be everywhere at the same time. He can appear in two bodily forms at two different places at the same time. And the reason why I believe this is Jesus Christ is because the glory of the Lord shone round about him. The other angels haven't showed up yet. Pay attention to that. There's only one there, and then the glory of the Lord shows up. Now, have we read about the glory of the Lord before? In Exodus chapter 24, if you want to hold your place here and go back to Exodus chapter 24, and verse number 16, Exodus chapter 24, and verse number 16. How big is the glory of the Lord? I mean, really, how big is it? Does it just go right around him? I mean, and we'll talk about the appearance of the angel of the Lord. Is the glory of the Lord just as big as maybe the angel that showed up? Well, in Exodus, where did I tell you? 24 and verse 16. The glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai. Now, how big's a mountain? And if it was on top, yeah, it's bigger than a hill. Thank you for that. It's pretty big, isn't it? And the glory of the Lord shone round about it. As a matter of fact, if you read the account, it's like thunder clouds were all around the mountain, and the glory of the Lord was inside that, and there was lightning and thunderings inside there. So how big is the glory of the Lord? Now, is the glory of the Lord given to anybody else other than the Lord? Because it's the glory of the Lord, right? It's not the glory of, and say Michael, or the glory of. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever read the glory of Michael. I don't think I've ever read the glory of Gabriel. I have read the glory of Lucifer. You know how I've read that? Because he told us. And what was wrong with him telling us? That's a pride problem, isn't it? Well, let me tell you how good I look. Actually, you're in 24. Let's go to Exodus 40. Exodus chapter 40. I'm just trying to make a point here that the glory of the Lord belongs to the Lord. Okay, the glory of the Lord belongs to the Lord. Exodus chapter 40 and verse 34. Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. So much so that Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation, because the cloud abode thereon, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. The glory of the Lord belongs to the Lord. So when we read, go back to Luke chapter 2, when we read, and lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them. Who's in the sky right now? The Lord. And then it says, and they were sore afraid. What's the reaction of most people when they find out they're in the presence of God? Don't they fall down like dead men? I mean, we read that in the scriptures often. They fall down like dead men. Verse number 10. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David me. Right? We could say that. Which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. You shall find a babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts praising God and saying, this is when the angels show up. This is when the angels show up. So it's not the angel of the Lord, then the angels, and then the glory of the Lord, where the sky is all lit up. No. It's the angel of the Lord and then the glory of the Lord where the sky is all lit up. And then in that the angels come. What's that hymn we just sang? Hark, herald the angels sang. Have you ever heard of Harold the Angel? Hark, herald the angel sang? No. It's hark, the herald angel sang. But did they sing? You know, that's something to... That's an interesting little thing. I don't think I found in the scriptures anywhere where angels sing. It says saying, praising God, saying, glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. And it came to pass the angels were gone away from them into heaven. The shepherds said one to another, let us now go even to Bethlehem and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known unto us. And they came with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger. Where's Joseph and Mary and the babe? They're in the manger. So in your manger scene, you may have shepherds. We talked about this last week. Who cannot be there? When the wise men showed up, where did they go? To the house where the young child was. Here, these shepherds are there at the actual birth of Jesus Christ while he's in the manger. So these shepherds show up. And when they had seen it, verse 17, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning this child. Hey, could you imagine the story that the shepherds were telling? They made known what had happened to them. Hey guys, let me tell you what was happening. We were just sitting on the hillside. We were watching our flocks by night. By the way, watching the flocks by night, this was birthing time, lambing time. So this is why they're watching, is because lambs are being born, and the shepherds were ready to go down there and help the ewes give birth to the lambs. And so they're watching the flocks by night, and they're sitting on the hillside, and, you know, they didn't have phones where they could be live streaming their favorite, you know, cooking show. Ooh, the best hummus that there is. You know, it's like the Chopped show, hummus. Competition. It's not like they had anything there that they could entertain themselves with. They're sitting on the side of the hill. And so they're telling the account of when the angel of the Lord showed himself in the sky and the glory of the Lord shone round about them. Man, we could tell you about this light. Let's talk about the glory of the Lord. Do you remember reading about it in the Old Testament? Do you remember when the glory of the Lord filled Mount Sinai? Do you remember when the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle? It was like that. But today, we hadn't seen that in a long time. This is what the shepherds is sharing. We haven't seen that in a long time, so they're telling the story. And then after the angel of the Lord announced his birth, all these the host of heaven showed up. Now, how many's in a host? A heap of. That's right, a bunch. There was a lot of them that showed up. So again, the shepherds were sharing these things to those that were around. Verse number 18. And all they that heard it wondered at those things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told them unto them. Do you think the shepherds had a normal night after that? I mean, think about it. Here it is coming lambing time again next year. How do you think those shepherds are? I think one of those shepherds invented sunglasses in that year. It was like angel glasses. Glory of the Lord glasses or something, you know. In a survey, nearly a third of those questions stated that all of the persons mentioned in the Christmas story, they identified the most with the shepherds. The shepherds were average, ordinary people. Blue-collar workers invited to the birth of the King of Kings. Just regular old people invited to the birth of the King of Kings. Now, why did God choose shepherds? Why did God choose to appear to shepherds? You know, if you look at the Old Testament, did God ever use shepherds or appear to shepherds or use shepherds or anything like that? Let's take a real quick survey of the Old Testament. Are you guys ready? All right, go with me to Genesis chapter 7. Genesis chapter 7 and verse number 1. The Lord said unto Noah, was Noah a shepherd? Well, it doesn't say so, but did he become a shepherd? I mean, he was on a boat. There's only 8 of them. But there's 2 of every kind of every animal on planet Earth, on the boat, on the ark. Do you think Noah became a shepherd? You're in Genesis 7. How about 13? Genesis chapter 13, verse number 1. And Abram, this is Abraham, went up out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver and in gold. He went on his journeys. Matter of fact, weren't there problems between Abraham's sheep and cattle and Lot's sheep and cattle? Abraham was a shepherd. Go to Genesis chapter 32. And verse number 13. Genesis chapter 32 and verse 13. And it says, and he lodged there, verse number 13. The he there is Jacob. He lodged there that same night, and took of that which come into his hand as a present, a present for Esau his brother, 200 she goats, 20 he goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milch camels with their colts, 40 kine, 10 bulls, 20 she asses, 10 foals. And he delivered them in the hand of his servants. What was Jacob? Wasn't he a shepherd? Didn't he work 7 years for Rachel, but then was tricked and he got Leah, and then he worked another 7 years for Rachel, and then he worked another 7 years for his sheep? He was a shepherd, wasn't he? You're in 32. Go to Exodus chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3 and verse number 1. Exodus chapter 3 and verse number 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law. What was Moses? Do you guys see a theme here? All right, how about 1 Samuel chapter 16? 1 Samuel chapter 16. Samuel sent to the house of Jesse to anoint the next king after Saul. 1 Samuel chapter 16, starting in verse number 6, and it came to pass when they were come, that he looked on Eliab, and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab, and made him pass before Samuel, and he said, neither hath the Lord chosen this. Then Jesse made Shammah to pass by, and he said, neither hath the Lord chosen this. Again Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel, and Samuel said unto Jesse, the Lord hath not chosen these. And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all thy children? And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance, and goodly to look at. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. The Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. Again, did the Lord have an interest in the Old Testament in shepherds? The last one we'll look at will be Job. Job chapter 1. Job chapter 1. And we'll look at verse number 1. Job chapter 1 and verse 1. There was a man in the land of Uz, his name was Job. And that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 what? Sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 she-asses, and a very great household. So this man was the greatest of all the men in the east. What was Job? Because the Lord took such an interest and used so many shepherds in the Old Testament, doesn't it just make sense that when he announced his birth, he would go to shepherds? But not only that, and I heard this mentioned earlier, is not Jesus himself the shepherd? Let's take a look at 3 passages and we'll be done. Mark chapter 6. Mark chapter 6 and verse 34. Mark chapter 6 and verse 34. Mark chapter 6 and verse number 34. And Jesus, when he came out, saw much people and was moved with compassion toward them because they were sheep. They were as sheep, not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. So here we see Christ as the shepherd. He was moved with compassion toward them because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. Have you ever seen sheep without a shepherd? Sickly bunch. They don't know where to go. They can't eat. They can't drink. It's just a sickly bunch. So he's the shepherd. John chapter 10. John chapter number 10. In verse 11. John chapter 10 and verse number 11. How does that verse start out? I am the good shepherd. Now, do you have a red letter edition Bible? Yes. Are those words in red? Yes. All right, who's the I there? Jesus. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep, or for the sheep. But he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. The hireling fleeth because he is an hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. Not only is he the shepherd, but he is the good shepherd. Not only is he a good shepherd, but he knows us. Now, I don't know about you, but that could be a scary thought, couldn't it? He knows us. There's sometimes when I wish I would just be lost in the crowd. You know? Well, there's 8 billion people on planet Earth. Surely he's not paying attention to me. But he knows me. And not only does he know me, the hairs on my head are numbered. He knows me better than I know me. I don't know how many hairs I have on my head. I don't know how many hairs I have on my head. You know, we usually just talk about the hairs on the top of the head, right? What about your eyebrows? What about your eyelashes? Those of you that have facial hair, what about your beards and mustaches? The ones on your neck. When I was in the military in basic training, the instructor said, you will go into the bathroom and you're going to shave every hair off of your face. Okay? So we had some guys that took them literally. Shave off eyebrows, cut off eyelashes. You know, intelligent people cut their beards and their mustaches. You know, we shaved. Those guys were made examples of. But I'm just saying that to say this. God knows the hairs on your head. Your head's not just here. He's a good shepherd. He knows more about us than we know about ourselves. He says, I know my sheep and am known of mine. When we were in Mexico, the area that we were in, there was a lot of goat herds that were there. And, 3 or 4 of the goat herders would get together in a watering hole, and the goats would just go to the watering hole. But then when one of the guys was ready to leave, he would make a special noise that his goats knew. And you would see 1/3 of the goats just come out of there and just start following this guy. They were all his goats. They knew his shepherd by the sound that he made. None of the other goats followed the sound of the one shepherd that left. Now, when their shepherd left, they would make their noise, and then their goats would come out and follow them. It was a cool thing to see. So it really illustrates this. Verse number 14, I am the good shepherd and know my sheep and am known of mine. When Jesus makes a sound, we're like, when the Pope makes a sound, we're all like, what? When Buddha makes a sound, what? When Muhammad makes a sound, what? But when Jesus makes a sound, we're like, Hebrews chapter 13. Not only is Jesus the shepherd, and not only is he the good shepherd, in Hebrews chapter 13 and verse number 20, Hebrews chapter 13 and verse number 20. Now the God of peace that brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus, that great shepherd of the sheep, through the blood of the everlasting covenant, make you perfect in every good work to do his will, working in you that which is well-pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. Not only is Jesus the shepherd, not only is he the good shepherd, but he's the great shepherd. So it's no wonder that when he was going to announce his birth, he was going to go to shepherds and announce his birth. He was going to his own kind. He was going to his own kind. You know the word pastor? You know the word pastor? You take the word pastor in Spanish, pastor, that's the word shepherd. That's the word shepherd. He's the pastor of the sheep. That's a shepherd. And so, pastor, you guys are the flock, and I'm the shepherd. So I'm the pastor, and you're the sheep. Some of you are good. Some of you are bad. You know what side you're on, right? You know what side you're on, right? And so the Lord, again, no wonder. And then throughout time, no wonder he refers to his church as flocks. He's the shepherd, the good shepherd, and the great shepherd, and I'm the under shepherd. And we're his sheep. And so again, no wonder in Luke chapter 2, when he was going to announce the birth, when he was going to announce his own birth, no wonder why he went to the shepherds. He has a history with shepherds. He has a history with them. And shepherds, when you think of a shepherd, do you think that is like a high, that's a high job, right? That's one of those jobs that I aspire to go up to, isn't it? Most of the time when I think of shepherds, I'm thinking of boots, sloshing around in, just all kinds of not clean stuff. And it's hard work. It's hard work, slinging food, slinging hay. It's hard work. So it's not something that really we aspire to, but no wonder why the Lord wants to identify with hardworking, middle to lower class people, because He doesn't need a lot of people that are full of themselves. He doesn't need people that are full of themselves. You know, when we think of shepherds, that's not a high calling. Needed, but it's not a high calling. And so as we, again, as we read down through the Christmas story and we think about Christmas and the birth and all of that, think about those shepherds that night. It would have been neat to have been a shepherd, but I'm glad I wasn't one of those shepherds. I can't imagine the brightness of the glory of the Lord just unfettered in the night. Bam. That glory shining out there. But then as we think about it, also think about He appeared to shepherds, regular old people. How many of you identify as regular old people? I'm just a regular old guy. Thank God He appears to regular old people, huh? Amen. All right, let's stand to our feet with our heads bowed and our eyes closed.